Good morning.
Good morning. It,
Welcome to September 22nd, 2024.
exactly. And our topic today is the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary.
Damn, that's a good title. Well, that's what I thought of that.
And we know that's true for all of us. But we were inspired by the story of the Congressional Gold Medal of Honor given posthumously to the hidden figures of NASA. Many of you may have seen the movie about these women of color who did all the hand configuration. It says
Yeah.
that they worked from the not all of them, but some women were working from the 30s to the 70s with mathematics that laid the foundation for space exploration. And so just recently, the Gold Congressional Medal of Honor was given to the descendants of these women that worked at NASA
They,
Langley.
they actually saved the lives of the astronauts that were up in the air because there was a problem that needed to be solved mathematically that they were unable to solve. They came up with the formula to get them back when things broke down. I don't remember the whole movie. Some of you have seen it, will remember it better than I do. But they actually saved the day and never got credit for it. And well, didn't get credit for it. Then they got credit for it much, much later.
Posthumously,
Yeah.
it's rather sad. And those of you who saw the movie saw that this was during, it wasn't really during segregation, it was in the 60s.
Segregation still.
Well, it was still, I guess, active in Virginia. They were in Langley, and they had to work in a separate section of Langley. They were segregated. To go to the bathroom, they had to walk a couple of miles
They had to leave the
to
building.
go to. Yeah, they had to leave their building. So they worked under these extraordinary circumstances, and their mathematics was all done by hand, not by computers. And it said that they. I want to get to the part in this article where they actually laid the foundation for oh, of course, I'm not able to find it right now, but this, it's just amazing that these women who were aeronautical engineers and mathematicians, and they were way ahead of their time, that they had been able to become proficient in these areas. And they worked long and hard and really got the first made possible the first manned space orbit around the Earth, which was John Glenn, I believe, in 1962.
Mhm.
But it's a perfect example of the ordinary heroes operating all the time within each one of you as well as with us.
And that's why we're talking about that today, is because unfortunately we often frame ourselves in an ordinary frame. We frame the possibilities for our lives it to be ordinary. We live with ordinary limitations. And so if you believe yourself to be a normal, as I hear often, or ordinary, then that's really your glass ceiling. It isn't one imposed on you, it's one that you've created that you live under. And we know that when people have extraordinary demands made, they meet those demands and they'll say, well, that was a miracle or that was an exception. The truth is we're exceptional on demand, and we don't often demand that of ourselves. We demand ordinary, or we expect that's what's true. Every single person right now that's listening to us or watching us has had an extraordinary experience in their life. And the way often we have explained it is that something happened to us that wasn't us. It was something more than us, rather than we really showed up with all of who and what we are. And
Now,
it's
we
so
have a
important.
tendency to say if it came from me or I did it, it
It was divine.
it couldn't have been
Oh,
extraordinary.
yeah.
It was just ordinary.
And I've shared the story before with when we were doing counseling together. We had a private practice together. There was a woman who would come regularly to her appointment late. Every single time she was late, I know there's something wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can never make it on time. And then one day she made it on time, and she said, I made it on time. I said, I know, that's wonderful. She said, thank Jesus. I said, wait a second. whenever you do something that's really good, who do you thank? I thank Jesus. And whenever you do something that isn't so good, I blame myself. And I said, so you never get any credit for the extraordinary things you do. You only get credit for the things that don't go. I said, I never thought of it that way. And we live in a world in which we often do not give ourselves the recognition for the exceptional, which is the possibility of the more of us that shows up.
Well, and a lot of people are raised with the religion, and she probably was,
Yeah.
that if something bad happens, the devil made you do it.
It was your fault. Yeah.
And something good happens, you know, you had a divine intervention from Jesus.
Yeah, I'm always
So-
struck with that when there's a train wreck or a car wreck and three people get killed and this person doesn't, and they say, Jesus saved me. I guess he's limited as to how many people he can save on any particular accident.
Or he chose not to
Yeah,
save
yeah,
the
yeah.
others.
Wow, I wonder what they were doing, yeah. But it's sad that we think in a way that very often diminishes the possibility for us to express our own greatness. And to recognize that that's available to us is really, really important. I grew up, as many of the people that I know grew up in a family that was poor financially. And when I mean poor financially, we were really, 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 really poor because my father
Food
had,
was a problem.
well, my father had some mental disabilities, and that always meant that he didn't get what he needed to get when he needed it. And so we moved a lot and we were poor just all the time. I wore Salvation Army clothes. I knew all about poor. But the difference between the poverty that I experienced and the poverty that some of my neighbors experienced who lived next door who were just as poor is my father insisted on telling us story after story about the wealthy family that he was raised in. And he was actually raised in it for a few years because he was adopted as a child, not even as a baby. But he would tell us these stories about the Philadelphia wealthy and how we were like that. And he would tell us the
That's
cars.
who you really were.
That's who we really were. We were the undiscovered
Elite.
Philadelphia wealthy living in a slum. Without heat sometimes and without food, eating ice cream for dinner, if we could afford it. But what that did was I didn't walk around poor. I walked around disguised as poor. So, we listened to Tchaikovsky, we listened to Brahms, we listened to Chopin because it was important because of who we were to listen to these people because these were the people we were connected to them. So that meant later in life, when I went to the university and I would have conversations with people who had a much better upbringing than I did as far as abundance, we would talk about similar things and they would assume that my heritage was that same wealth heritage that they had. And the truth is our wealth and heritage is a state of mind. It's an understanding of how we are in the world. So I never had a day when I was poor, but I also was aware of how little I had. My father always drove an old car because he couldn't afford a new one, but he drove a Packard because that was his heritage. And so we knew what was right and what was wrong from the standpoint of abundance. And I think a lot of that is wrapped up in segregation and separating yourself to make yourself better than others. There's a lot of parts of that weren't nice. But you learn a lot about yourself when you see the position you're in and the position you choose to take.
And our teaching, with teaching people how to do spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer, I find someone asked earlier if it was a form of hypnosis. And I thought, well, it is a little like self-hypnosis because when I do a treatment, an affirmative prayer, I get transported to that reality, to a knowing that it's the truth, even if it's not physical yet. If I can't see it physically, but I know it's so, and I know there's a power greater than me that is making it so. And I can use that power. That's what Ernest Holmes taught us. He said, there is a power in the universe that is greater than you are, and you can use it.
So he was talking about the extraordinary within each of us.
Yes, he was.
And however you position yourselves to be in that place of discovery and to be in that place of recognition, whether it's self-hypnosis to position yourself so that you can then listen to that inner voice, but that inner voice is not hypnosis, that inner voice is the greater you that exists in all of us.
Exactly. And this is a quote from Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind book that he wrote. And he says, we can awaken to the living presence of the eternal God within each one of us and enter into a realization of peace and joy As we come to surrender all littleness, fear, and doubt, the river of life flowing from the mind of God will renew our vigor, remake our strength, and there is a deep, abiding peace. Let's experience it.
I love it.
Just beautiful.
I'm reminded of, I have been thinking about it recently. One of our members has a podcast, and his podcast is music. And he invited me to join him in the music. And I spent probably the better part of a day assembling all the music that I had heard in my life that I wanted to pay attention to, and making some notes. And so that when I got on the air with him, I would sound like I actually knew what I was talking about. And, but he did know what he was talking about. And I thought, he's really a closet musicologist. And he's a producer.
Well, if he has a radio show, is
He's
he
out of the
closet?
closet. Yeah, he's out of the closet, yeah. But his breadth and depth of knowledge, his passion for that was extraordinary. And I thought, wow.
That's the extraordinary
Yeah.
and the
But
ordinary.
so this is a little podcast coming out of a little microphone being played in a little world that is, there's not as many people in his world listening to him as there are on CBS or NBC. But he was every bit as good and every bit as knowledgeable and every bit as a professional. And I thought, here's an opportunity this individual took to be exceptional, or actually just to show off the joy and love that he has about something that we all have. And as soon as we focus on something and we say this is important to us, the extraordinary within us leaps forward and says, I want to embrace that.
And I see that. I know some of the people attending this talk right now, or this conversation, as we call it, and each one has exceptional talents and abilities that I see that I bet they don't recognize in themselves. They
Yeah.
just think, "Oh, I'm just ordinary." You
Yeah,
know,
I know, I know one ordinary person who listens to us and participates with us, who has property that to me looks like the making of a movie. And when I say the making of a movie, that is the people she has coming in and leaving, and the dramas and in the theater that goes on in her arena is nothing short of extraordinary all by itself. And she is the central figure in helping other people have lives that they couldn't have without her. It's pretty
right.
extraordinary. She spends her time and her money and her labor working with people who don't even know that she's working for them, that she's working with them, that she's working in favor of them. It's extraordinary. And largely missed by most people. If they were drive by this person's house, they would say, okay, I don't know, it's worth more money now than it used to be. But it's worth so much more in consciousness than that, because it's a commitment to the extraordinary.
Exactly. And it's really hard for us to see that in ourselves. You know, we think if I can do it, it can't be that great.
Yeah.
You know, but what if you could? What if you could acknowledge the extraordinary, that the extraordinary in me is the extraordinary in the divine expressing through me? And I accept that and I give thanks for it.
What if you believe that every human being you meet is extraordinary, disguised as normal and ordinary? And that all we have to
Exactly.
do is to peel back the ordinary and discover the extraordinary.
Oh, I would like you to tell your story about when you were told you would meet your teacher.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I'd gone to a psychic who was quite well known as being an accurate predictor of conditions and circumstances that we were all going to deal with. So I went and I listened to it. She said, this week you're going to meet your teacher. And I thought, wow, this is going to be cool. And I'm walking down the hall at the university hospital where I worked, and I saw the janitor, and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if he were my teacher? So I stopped and I talked to him. He was really interesting, and I'd never talked to him before. And then later I went to the cafeteria. We had an ongoing battle in the cafeteria because we would order food on the unit or on the floor that I worked on in psych, that for patients that didn't exist or that had been discharged, so we could have something to eat for free. And they knew it. And it was a cat and mouse game all the time of how much free food we could get and how much they would catch us. So whenever I would walk into the cafeteria, she would look at me with like, what have you stolen this week? And I walked in and I looked at her and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if she were my teacher? And she said, we just baked some fresh apple pie. Would you like some? And I thought, what is
Would I like
would
some?
I like some? Yeah, yeah. I mean, do you know who I am? And so she gave me this. I thought, wow, this is really interesting. And so Then I talked to my supervisor, and I had my supervision, my weekly supervision, and I thought, wow, he probably is my teacher. And I listened more attentively to his sharing with me, and I thought he's brilliant, and what he's giving me, I would pay a fortune for, and I'm getting it for free because I work here. And then on a Friday, we were getting ready to go home, and I worked in day treatment, which is a psychiatric facility for people that are in treatment for the day. And one of the patients came up to me and she said, I won't be back on Monday. And I said, well, why not? She said, because I'm going to kill myself on the weekend. Oh my God. So what I did was I dug into the answers I usually give to try to quiet down and deal with the situation, none of which worked. So I dug a little deeper. And I dug a little deeper. Before long, we were talking heart to heart, soul to soul, person to person in a way that I don't normally on a Friday afternoon talk to anybody. And I said, this is my teacher. That's really amazing. Anyway, we got through this and she went home and I went home. And the next week I saw the psychic again and she said, so how did it go? And I said, you won't believe this. I met my teacher and she was one of the sickest mental health patients that I have that I'm working with. She said, oh, no, 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 no. I meant that metaphorically. So, so here's what's interesting is, as soon as you believe you're going to find something, you begin discovering it. What if we were trying to find the extraordinary in ourselves and in the people that we meet?
Everybody,
Yeah.
everybody.
And so,
Because when you treat people that way, they live up to it. You
yeah,
know, they live up to it.
yeah.
They become more when you see more in them, and because they have trouble seeing it in themselves, as we all do.
I was talking to one of the social workers I work with where I'm working now, and she works really, really hard. And I watched her working with a particular client. And when she got all done, I said, I really appreciate what you did. And she said, well, what do you mean? And I outlined all of the things that she did. And she said, nobody's ever said that to me before. I said, but you've done this a lot of times. She said, I know, but it just makes me feel so good to realize that somebody saw all of these things, put them all together and sees me. We often experience people not seeing us, and then we stop looking also
Yeah.
at ourselves and at other people. So this week, what I'm inviting you to do is to take a deeper dive into the greatness of your own being, to the extraordinary person that you truly, really are, and to the extraordinary people that you meet. And imagine that every time you meet somebody, you're meeting an extraordinary person, and that this is a joyous union.
And
See what happens.
and if you can't go back into your past and find some, work with your present and your future, because this power that is available to us, which is greater than we are, but we can use it. And so, I love manifesting our dreams, manifesting positive things for ourselves and others, because it demonstrates that there is more possible than we know is possible for us. We can heal ourselves, we can help heal others. We may not heal them 100%, and that's into accepting what is, but it is so empowering to do what you can. In other words, my son passed away 2 years ago. I couldn't keep him from his death, but I think all of my affirmative knowing uh, also helped him have a great experience in his 2 years
Yeah.
of life that he had before, when he got the diagnosis and when he passed, was actually 2.5 years. And that was filled with a lot of wonderful loving and living.
You did something that really, really is important. You celebrated his 2 years of living day by day while he was living. You didn't
Yeah.
celebrate the diagnosis and the sadness that would come when he passed. You didn't give constant attention to what was going to be over, what was in fact happening. And he did too.
He did too.
And so when we celebrate life rather than the things in life that we don't like or don't need or don't want or that harm us, we make room for that power which is greater than we are to work through us. And when we don't, it's a whole different game. Your ability to connect with him after he passed, which happened also, was in part because of the way you connected to him while he was here. And that's a huge piece. So
Right.
I thank all of you for being here today, for helping us to have this conversation. because without it, we wouldn't have had it.
Yes,
And it's,
wonderful.
and I think we often have what I consider to be extraordinary conversations because we're talking to extraordinary people.
We are, and we know it.
So we're gonna go to, did you do the,
I'm not sure I
no,
did.
I don't think you did a share screen. So we're just gonna, just plain out ask you like, this is PBS and this is our fund
Yeah.
driver. This is our Sunday fund drive. For those of you that like what you're hearing, who believe that what we share is valuable and has importance and it changes your life, please contribute to this ministry so that we can continue to do it and that we can grow and expand it. And know one other thing as well, the gift that you give doesn't just support the ministry that you're being served by, it supports the ministry of people who don't even have a clue that what we're sharing is possible, and when they discover it, it's life-changing for them. So you're a change maker, not only for yourself, but for the people around you too. Go to our website.
CSLPalmBeaches.org.
And contribute, but there's several ways you can contribute. Leave that alone. There's several ways you can contribute, contribute. And so
No, it's just one way. You click on ways to donate button at the top.
no,
and
no,
that
you
takes
can bring money to the house, or knock on the door and say, we have money we want to give you, Bob. You can send it through UPS, small bills, whatever works for you, unmarked, of course, yeah, whatever works for you. So anyway, let's say together, the gift I give is the gift I receive. The joy I give is the joy that comes to me. I serve myself, I serve others, and all the others and myself are in service to the humanity that I'm a part of. And for this, I say thank you. And so it is.
And so it is.
And we're going to end here. Stop recording down here. There we go.